Hello, my name is Stephen Mayeux, and you're watching The Best JS. In this video series, we are making a full stack application using React.js on the front end, Node and Express on the back end, and Socket.io to connect the two, the client and the server. Basically, if you've ever wondered how a chat box or some sort of chat messenger application works, it's probably because of WebSockets, which keeps an open line of communication between the client and the server. And essentially, the client can emit certain events, and the server listens to those events from the client. And vice versa, the server can also emit events that the client listens to. And we'll go over this concept as we write the code, but that's basically what's happening. The client and the server are listening for events from each other, and they're also emitting certain events to each other. So anyway, without further ado, let's jump into the code. This is our server file that we wrote in the last video. It essentially connects on port 3000, and it serves up index.html here in our root route. And no matter what like address or what route that we visit, it's always going to send that index.html file to us. So let's get Socket.io set up on the server, and in the next video, we'll set it up on the client. All right, so below line 7, we'll require in Socket.io. Const io require socket.io. And remember, we required that in. We have already installed it when we were setting up the boilerplate. All right, so this is going to require in and bring in an object. We're going to call the listen method on that object and give it our server. And then we're going to write io sockets.on connection. All right, this is just some initial setup that we have to do in order to make everything work. And it's in the documentation if you want to read more about what this is and what's happening under the hood. By all means, go for it. But essentially, we need to write this bit of code for our application to work with Socket.io. So anyway, so io.sockets.on connection, and we're going to give it a callback function. It'll take one argument, socket. We'll call it socket. Give it a fat arrow. Okay, and there's a lot of events that we can create, like custom events that we can create on the client or server, and we can emit those events. There's also a lot of default events that come, already, pre-packaged with Socket.io. So when a client, in other words, when a browser or a person who's on the internet, when they visit this server, okay, this website or whatever, every time they do that, okay, on connection, okay, that's basically what this means. When a client connects, I want the server to automatically emit an event, and I want that event to be called init. So we will write socket.emit. We'll call it init, and generally we can pass some data to it if we want to, and that data is always as an object, and we can pass any data to it that we want. So we can write message and hello world. Okay, so this is not very exciting, but essentially what we have done with this code is anytime a client, anytime a browser, a new browser connects to our server, okay, it's going to, the browser is going to emit this connection event, and then immediately the server is going to emit an event called init, which is just short for initialize. And it's going to pass a data object with that event with one property, message, and it has a value of hello world. So this is really all the setup that you have to do. Of course, we're going to write and listen to more events in this callback function later on in the series. But I just want to take a moment and kind of clean this up. You could put a lot of different, socket.emits and socket.ons in this callback function, which could make our server.js file a little bit bloated. So I'm instead going to create a new file which will store all of this logic. That way our server.js stays nice and clean and like organized. Anytime you're working on like a big project, try to keep everything modular and like in different files and directories if possible. So let's create a new file. I'm going to call it socketroutes.js. Okay. And I'm going to export a single function to this in this file. So module.exports. Okay, it's going to be a fat arrow function. It's going to take one argument. We'll call it socket. Okay, and essentially we are just going to copy and paste all the work that we have done in here and bring it in there. All right, so same thing. Now all we have to do is just require in our socket routes. So with module.exports, we are exporting a single fat arrow function, and we can import it into this file. So const.socket routes, okay, require, okay, /socket routes, okay, perfect, and that's a JavaScript file. Oh, and by the way, I did not get this from npm, and it's not a core, node module, so I have to put in the relative path to it. Otherwise, if you did download it from npm, or if you got it, if it comes natively with Node, you just put the name of the module. Otherwise, you have to put in the relative path. So /, that means that it is in the same directory as this file right here, server.js. So anyway, socket route, this is now equal to a function right here. And because it's pretty much the same thing as a function, we can take all of this out, and then I can just write socket routes. Okay? And if I save all of that, this is exactly the same thing now. And all of that logic, if you're writing a lot of events like an application such as a multiplayer game or a chat application, you will have a lot of events that you'll have to listen to. And well, it's just so much nicer to break it out into its own file. So let's go back to the terminal. Okay, it looks like things have been running and no errors right here, so that's good. And let's go to here, and let's just refresh it. All right, looks good. No errors or anything like that. All right, nothing in the console here. Let's just try that one more time. Control-C. I'm going to npm run server. And yeah, we shouldn't have any problems. Okay, we're not, the server now, it is emitting an event. As soon as a client connects, it is emitting an event, but the client is not listening to any socket events. So one more time, let me say that to you. So we have set up socket.io on the server, and as soon as a client, in other words, as soon as a new browser connects to the server, okay, it's going to fire off this connection event, and so socket.io is listening to it. And immediately, as soon as somebody is going to connect, our server will emit an event called init, and it's going to pass some data in an object to our client. So nothing happens right now because we need to tell our client to listen to this event called init. And that's what we're going to do in the next video. So take a break. In the next video, we're going to jump into the React code and set up our client to work with socket.io. Okay, that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Boop.